DreAllDay.com.
We're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Baldwin, also known as DreAllDay, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, we're getting into the first part. Is this a two-part series? Let me check. Yes, this is a two-part series. First part of a two-part series, which is, do black people have to work twice as hard? Now, I know there's a bunch of you who are not black, and you have heard black people saying this. And if you haven't, let me inform you on something. A lot of black people say this. And there are some of you listening to this who are black, and you have been told and you have adopted this mentality that because you are black, you either have in the past, or that you do in the present, or that you will in the future work or have to work 10 times as hard or twice as hard, or whatever number, whatever multiple you want to put on it, as hard as a white person to achieve similar or close to the same outcomes. Today and tomorrow, we're going to address this belief that a lot of people have allowed to be indoctrinated into their minds, that you as a black person, or that black people, if you're not black, have to work twice as hard or 10 times as hard, whatever number they're coming up with, some multiple of hardness that you have to do over a person who's not black in order to get a similar level of outcome or opportunity. Because this theme has become a common refrain. Again, a lot of black people saying it, and then you got white people who maybe you're white and you consider yourself an ally of black people, or you're white and you don't consider yourself an ally of black people. You just hear black people saying this, and you wonder if it's a real thing, and you probably have been hesitant to say anything about it, and I understand why you've been hesitant, white person, to say something about this. And whatever that, again, this is since programs like DEI. Let's go here. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am on the record, in case any of you didn't know, I am not a fan of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I believe it is the enemy of high performance because it centers and prioritizes identity over outcomes. And I am an athlete. I come from an outcome-based world called the sports world, where the only thing that matters is the scoreboard, not who you are, not who you're related to, not if you are a traditionally marginalized person or you come from such a community, or if you're who you sleep with, or what you were assigned at birth. We don't play any of that bullshit in the sports world. Either you can play or you can't. That's the world that I come from. That's why I'm not a fan of DEI, because DEI is not about whether you can perform, it's about who you are as the priority. And in life, any situation, there must be a priority. DEI prioritizes identity over performance, period. Nobody can argue with that, even if you're a DEI fan. That's why I'm not a fan of DEI. And I've done several episodes trashing DEI, and I will do more episodes trashing DEI as necessary in the future, in case any of you was wondering. Anyway, there are many black people who have created some level of success and or are striving to do so, who like to claim that they are either or would have to work 10 times as hard or twice as hard as a non-black person, often white people, to get the same outcome or the same opportunities. Now, this sounds good. This sounds like a really good thing. If you're black and you're out there saying, hey, I had to work 10 times harder to get the outcome, and you end up coming to believe it, black people, you come to believe this. Main reason you come to believe it because nobody ever challenged you on it. Every time you say it, other black people agree with you, and white people don't say anything because they're not you, so they can't say that you didn't experience what you said you experienced. So this is a tricky little idea here that a lot of people have accepted because, again, nobody's going to challenge you on it, and a lot of people are going to agree with you. So who is anybody to say anything? And who am I to say anything? Right now, some of you are bristling at how I'm even starting to frame this, because you probably have an idea of where I'm going here. You don't really know where I'm going, but you're going to find out in a minute. And you're like, why would anybody even challenge this? And especially as a black person, Dre, why would you challenge it? Well, I'm going to tell you why I'm going to challenge it, because if I was agreeing with it, I probably wouldn't have to talk about it. Now, would I? Now, this sounds good. It often goes unchallenged, because anybody who would challenge this is going to get framed as racist, or you're betraying your own race. Some people think I'm betraying my own race by even saying this. Good news is, somewhat good news is, I'm a black guy. Nobody can put that stamp on me necessarily. And I got a whole brand called Work on Your Game. So you can't really say that I'm saying anything negative about effort in working. And third, just not for nothing, many of you black people listening to this, I put in more work at what I do than you would even think about putting into what you do, all due respect. So nobody can tell me that I am unqualified to talk about how much effort anybody puts in any fucking thing. So all that said is a frame here. What I'm going to do today and tomorrow, I'm going to point out the lack of logic, the lack of rationality, and the outright false frames that go into this thought process, and explain what actually happens in these situations where someone claims they're working 2 times harder or 10 times harder than someone else, as opposed to what some of you continue to believe and what some of you keep falsely repeating. Because is this true to black people working 2 or 10 times harder? I'm going to address that right here in the first point. So the topic is, again today, is do black people have to work twice as hard? The answer is, this is point number 1, no, that is not true. If you are black, listen to this. I'm going to pose the question, then I'm going to answer it. Do we as black people have to work twice as hard or 10 times as hard to get the same outcomes as white people? The answer is no, you don't, no, I don't, no, we don't. I'm going to answer what you do have to do. All right, I'm not just ending the conversation there. We're just getting started. People love to say this. All right, most of you motherfuckers ain't doing shit when it comes to hard work. Let's get that right on the table from the very beginning. And I'm going to say that one again. I'll probably say it a bunch of times before this series is over. Most of you motherfuckers, when it comes to hard work, most of you don't know what hard work even fucking looks like, let alone are you doing it. So no, you are not working twice as hard as any fucking body. You're not working twice as hard as yourself, let alone anybody else. Let alone are you working 10 times as hard as anybody. Most of y'all ain't doing shit when it comes to hard. Most of you, again, you wouldn't know hard work if it smacked you upside your goddamn head. You don't know what hard work even looks like, let alone should you be talking about it or claiming it. You are disrespecting the very concept of hard work by claiming that you're working harder than somebody else. A lot of you fall into this category. And if the shoe fits and you're listening to this, don't get mad at me. You should be thanking me for holding the mirror up to you. And I'm going to explain exactly what I mean. Many of you are not working even 1 time as hard as other people who are further ahead of you. 1 time as hard means equal. That's what it means, doing the same thing that they're doing. If someone is further ahead than you, and you say, well, I got to work 10 times as hard to get the opportunity they're getting, you're not even working as much as they're working right now. They're already working harder than you. They're working twice as hard as you. That's one of the reasons why they're where they're at and you're where you're at. It ain't because of race. It's not because of racism. It's not because of somebody holding you back. It's because you are not putting the effort in to even be average, let alone to be great. And yet you're claiming that you're working 10 times as hard. No, you are not. And we're going to get into the flaw and logic of this. We're getting, first of all, to the emotional approach to it. We're going to get to the logical approach as well before we're done, as we always do. All right, you know my work. All right, I know it is a figure of speech. When people say you have to work twice as hard as 10 times hard, I understand that it's a figure of speech. But we need to break it down. Because a lot of people come to believe this not only as a figure of speech, but many of you believe this literally. You believe it metaphorically, you also believe it literally. That you have to do more than a white person to get the same outcome as a white person. A lot of you believe that on a metaphorical level, whether it's 2 times, 10 times, or whatever. And some of you logic, and some of you believe it in a literal sense, like you really are working that much harder. Okay, we're gonna get into this. Most of you are not coming anywhere close to doing this. That's my point logically. And I'm talking on a metaphorical level and a literal level. Most of you are nowhere near working twice as hard or 10 times as hard as anyone of significance, let alone are you actually doing it. Did everybody hear me? Do you know what they have in China? In the tech and entrepreneurial spaces, the tech space and many professional sectors in the country of China, they have this concept called the 996. Have you heard of it? Let me tell you what the 996 means. It means when you work in certain technological or professional spaces in the country of China, the expectation, the norm, the standard is that you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. 996. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. That's a 72-hour work week. That's a lot more than the 4-hour work week. Let me ask a question. How many of you have ever put in a 72-hour work week at anything? Yes, it's very quiet right now. How many of you ever put in a 72-hour work week at anything? What did you get done that week? What did you accomplish in that week? How many of you are working 72-hour work weeks right now, yet complaining that you're working 10 times harder? How many of you are willing to work a 72-hour work week? Let's talk about that. All right, as much as everybody wants to talk about work-life balance, I want to have a life outside of my career. I don't want to get slave-driven by the company. A lot of you like to talk like that, but you're not willing to put in the 72-hour work week. I just told you there are people in China who are working 72 hours a week, and this is the normal work. This is the normal week. This is not like we got to go hard. Let's do 72 hours this week. No, 72 hours is the normal week. Many of you Americans are bitching about a 40-hour week. And these people are working 72 hours a week. No wonder they're kicking our ass. And China is kicking our ass, by the way. It's not as obvious as it's going to be, but they're kicking our ass, America's ass, right now in damn near every space. The only thing they're not kicking our ass at is the freedom of speech. All right, and they ain't trying to. But when it comes to the work, technology, advancement, professional stuff, China is kicking our ass. And one of the reasons that they're kicking our ass is because their normal standard of work is way higher than our normal standard. Our standard of work is going down. It used to be people took pride in working as hard as you could and putting in overtime and putting in long weeks. And people understood that they would sacrifice some of the freedom and the comfort of a personal life to achieve professionally. Whether that is because you wanted to achieve ambitiously, whether you want to serve your family because you were the main breadwinner, whatever the reason was. It used to be like that. Nowadays, you got more people bitching about the fact that they're being asked to work too much in America. This is the wave right now. People are complaining about how much they have to work. And I'm not saying that working is necessarily a virtue just to do it. There are some people who want to set up their business to where they are taking more time off and they are working less and they do get 6 months out of the year on vacation. I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, but those people are not the people complaining about having to work 10 times harder. See, those ain't the ones complaining. People who are taking 6 months off and complaining, I got to work 10 times harder. No, it's you mofos who are working every day talking about you working 10 times harder. Are you willing to do a 72-hour work week? You willing to do the 996? Because see, those of you who have full-time jobs and you are trying to build something on the side of your full-time job, let me ask you a question. Are you willing to do the 996? What is the 996? Let's say your full-time job is from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Cool. And you're trying to build a side hustle. Okay, so from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock, 6 days a week, that's 4 hours times 6. That's 24 hours a week to work on your side hustle. Would that be enough time for you to get it where it needs to be? I'm pausing there because I can give you some time to think about that. From 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., because remember, it's 996. So you're working from 9 to 5. I got it. Let's block that time off. You got 5 to 9 now. If you spend 4 hours a day, 6 days a week working on your side hustle, could your side hustle advance faster than it is currently advancing? I'm just asking a question. I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm just asking a question. Any of you who's claiming this 10 times harder shit, are you doing that? Are you doing that? I remember years ago, this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. You know Gary V? Gary V, I heard him on a video. This had to be more than 10 years ago. But he was kind of talking about this. This is actually, I think, one of the first speaking gigs he did where he started to kind of blow up. Gary Vee is a pretty popular, famous guy these days. I don't follow his content, but I know who he is. And this is probably about 2008. He was speaking at some event. And one of the things that he said was that if you are trying to build your side hustle, and he has his way of saying, you know, Gary Vee has his style of speaking. I'm paraphrasing it in my language. He said, if you're doing a side hustle and you have a full-time job, then you work from 9 to 5. Then from 5 o'clock to like midnight, you get home, you get on your fucking computer and you go to town. If this is really what you're trying to do, that's the way you need to be working. You all need to stop watching fucking Lost. I remember him saying it. He need to stop watching Lost. Stop watching fucking Lost. Used to be a TV show called Lost that was really popular. So whenever that show was popular, that's when this happens. This is like 2008, 2009, if I remember properly. The point that he was expressing there in his way was that if you are serious about making up for with effort what you lack in opportunity, then your calendar should reflect that. And many of you are talking this shit, but you ain't living it. And I've been around for a long time. But I'm talking to athletes, employed people, entrepreneurs, licensed professionals, a lot of influencers, would-be influencers. A lot of people talk a whole lot of shit about how hard they would need to work to get something done and ain't fucking doing it. My brand is called Work on Your Game. All right, I know what I'm talking about. So you black folks talking this twice as hard shit, miss me with this bullshit. No, you're not. You ain't working twice as hard as anybody. You ain't working twice as hard as your fucking self, let alone a white person. Just remember that working hard, with all this being said, let's establish a baseline here. Working hard is not the goal. You're not in a working hard profession. There's no profession for working hard. And you don't get paid for hard work. You get paid for results. Okay, working hard is not even the point. But if you want to brag about working hard, let's look at it. Are you really working hard? Are you really working harder than everybody else? Probably not. I made the video back in around that same time that I mentioned that Gary Vee video. It was about 2008. I told basketball players, if you want to separate yourself from your competition, look around when you're training. Any of you who's an athlete, when you're training, I want you to look around. Look around and ask yourself how many of your peers are also training and doing the same stuff that you're doing. How often do you look around during your training and see nobody but yourself? And if that is not that frequent, most of the time you're training, you see a bunch of your peers doing the same shit that you're doing, You're not doing anything that nobody else is doing. Therefore, it makes sense that you are not exceptional and you don't stand out. You're doing the same thing everybody else is doing. Why would you expect to stand out? You're doing the same thing as everybody else. Look around during your training. Ask yourself, what am I doing that nobody else is doing? Are you doing anything that nobody else is doing? Most people cannot answer that question in the affirmative. I don't even care what it is. Are you doing anything that nobody else is doing? I used to tell basketball players this all the time. What are you doing that your teammates ain't doing? Nothing? Okay, so why are you expecting to be better than your teammates? You're doing the same stuff as them. And this is one of the reasons why I always tell people, even though I played a team sport being basketball, I think it would have been really good in a solo sport like tennis or boxing or something like that, had I picked that as a sport. Why? Because I always like to have the edge mentally of knowing I was doing something that not everybody else was doing. So even though I played a team sport and we had team practices and trainings and all that stuff, I always made sure that I carved out time to train outside of what the team requirements were, because I wanted to always be gaining an additional edge against even my own teammates when I was playing basketball. I never wanted to just do what the team required. And I went to college at a Division III college. Most of the players who I played with did not have ambition for advancing in basketball. Therefore, most of them only did what was required by the team. So if the coach required us to be at practice, they came to practice. But as soon as the coach stopped requiring practice, you never saw these guys in the gym ever again, because they didn't care. They were not ambitious. And I don't knock them for not being ambitious. That's what you expect at Division III college. But let's be clear. I knew players who played at Division I college. Same mentality. They just had more talent. They were at D1 because they had more talent. They showed up with more talent, but they didn't have any drive to do any of the extra work. I knew players at D1 level who didn't do extra work. Most of them didn't do extra work. I like to do extra work. My teammate, one of the few people who's been interviewed on the show, Wes Pfeiffer, you heard him interviewed last time was several years ago, but one of the reasons that he and I initially connected is because he was one of the few people, actually, let me not say few, he was one of the two people, I was one, he was the other one, on our campus who played basketball, who would actually show up to the gym on our own and train by ourselves. That's one of the main reasons we connected and became friends initially, because he would train by himself, I would train by myself. So we started training together by ourselves to work on our games, because we were serious about getting better, not just maintaining the status quo. Many of you, and again, you don't have to be a basketball player, are you doing this in any aspect of your life, business, or career? If not, what the hell are you talking about working twice as hard? You ain't doing it. What are you talking about? If you never notice that you're out there by yourself doing stuff, what are you talking about work twice as hard? Where did you get that from? Who told you that lie? And why are you repeating it? This is a serious question. If you're not doing anything outside of what everybody else is doing, you should not expect to achieve outcomes that are much different than your peers. Look around at your peers. All right, those are people you want to be like? Because your actions say yes. Most of you are not doing anything outside of your peer group. So please just cease and desist with this twice as hard or 10 times as hard nonsense, because you're not doing it. Point number 2, we're just getting started here. Today's topic, once again, is, are black people having to work 2 or 10 times as hard? Let me tell you what is true. Okay, I just told you what's not true. Here's what is true. You do sometimes need to be significantly better or more accomplished than someone of a different group, demographic group, depending on what space you're stepping into and or who you are competing against. Is this sometimes true? Yes, it is. You do need to be significantly better because of who you're going against and the frame of the competition that you're in. Yes, this is true. And I have seen this in my own personal experience. I'll give you some examples. As an athlete coming out of a Division III college, as I explained to you, when I wanted to go play pro, I was competing against players who came out of all levels of college and players who already had professional experience. I was coming out of one of the lowest levels of college ball, and I had no pro experience. I was running an uphill, this is an uphill climb for me to make it happen. So did I need to make sure that I clearly outperformed the player who already had a pro resume if I wanted to get the job over him? Yes, I did. That I had to make sure I clearly outplayed a player who played at a Division I or Division II college, since I was coming out of a Division III college. Yes, I did. There were times where I had to outperform them, and I had to show that I was significantly better than them. This is not about how much harder I worked than them, because how hard I worked wouldn't matter if I did not have the results. Nobody cares about your effort if you're not producing an outcome. Nobody cares about your effort if you are not producing an outcome. When you produce outcomes, people care about how hard you work because they want to know how you did it. If your outcomes are not significant, nobody cares about your effort, because why would anybody care about your effort? I mean, you ain't doing nothing that matters. So nobody cares how hard you worked. So anytime somebody talks about how hard they worked as if this is some kind of fucking virtue, no, it's not. How hard you work only becomes a virtue when you produce outcomes. If you're not producing outcomes, nobody cares about your hard work. It's insignificant. I'll give you another example. As a professional speaker, I had a woman say this to me years ago. This is about 2018. I was reaching out to people trying to find somebody who could represent me as an agent for the speaking business. She was a woman, and her agency mostly represented female speakers. And the only reason she took my call was because I was a black guy, not a white guy. And she said, and this is why, I'll tell you why. As soon as we got on the phone, she said, Dre, I want to tell you something up front about the speaking business. That the speaking business is, most of the people who hire speakers are middle-aged white men, and most of the people who get hired are middle-aged white men. And I already knew that. I could tell just from my experience at that point, I knew that was true. And when she told me it, it just further validated that idea. And it's been many years since that conversation, and I can further validate that is true. Professional speaking business is mostly decision makers are middle-aged white men, and most people who get booked are middle-aged white men. Does that necessarily mean these middle-aged white men are just picking the people that they like? I mean, people who they connect to because they're also middle-aged white men on some level, yes, but also because a lot of professional speakers are middle-aged white men. There's just more of them to choose amongst. If I just close my eyes and I just pick the speaker without looking at it, and I just ran my fingers through all the speakers available in the world and just picked one, I would probably land on the middle-aged white men because there are so many of them. There are not as many females. There are not as many black people. There are just a whole bunch of middle-aged white men. So it makes sense that a bunch of speakers are middle-aged white men. I don't complain about this. Let me be very clear. Understand something. I understand that if I need to get chosen amongst all these middle-aged white men, I need to do something that makes me stand out and makes me different from them. And I might need to be a little bit better than them, at least in the eyes of the decision maker. This is completely subjective. In the eyes of the decision maker in order to get their attention, because they could easily just pick another middle-aged white man. What can I do to make them say, let me go against the grain and do something different than what I normally do? All right, that's pushing people out of their normal mode of thinking. You got to give them a reason to do something different than what they normally do. I just told you, I played professional basketball coming out of a Division III college that does not produce professional athletes. I had to get the decision makers and those on those pro teams to do something that they normally would not do. It's not like I was coming out of some basketball factory where they said, oh, every player who comes out of here is good. Let's just take the next one. No, that wasn't the situation. He came out of what school? Who? We never heard of these guys. All right, why would we take a chance on this guy? I had to show them that I had something that would make them go against the grain of their normal way of thinking. You had to do the same thing. Now, did I have to work 10 times harder to do that? No. I had to figure out how to market and sell myself. Now, did I have to work hard and maybe harder than those other people to get to that position? Possibly, but is there a way of objectively measuring that? Not really. And does it even fucking matter? Not really. Why? Because we're in an outcome-based business, folks. Results-based business. Not effort-based business. Your effort does not really matter until you produce a result. Even then, it might not matter. This idea that you're working 10 or twice as hard as somebody else is a complete farce. If we just look at this on a literal level, the hardest any human being can work is 100%. Now, you can't work more than 100%. If you work 10 times harder than somebody else, that means the most that person can be given is 10%, because 10 times 100 equals 10 times 10 equals 100%. You're working 10 times harder than somebody else. They are giving 10% effort, and you got to give 100% to the max, balls to the wall with no breaks. Most human beings cannot keep up that level of effort throughout for a couple hours, let alone for an entire workday, let alone a 996, what we talked about earlier. You don't have the capability or the capacity to even do that, let alone are you actually doing it. Now, again, I understand this is a metaphor. What if it was twice as hard? For you to work twice as hard as somebody, that means they can only be given 50% effort, because you can't double anything over than 50% because your cap is 100%. If you need to advance yourself past other people in any type of politicized environment, which basically means anywhere outside of sports playing, your outcomes, not your effort, needs to surpass that of your competition. Your outcomes, your results, not your effort, your results, your outputs, not your inputs. Do you understand? If you don't have the same in that somebody else has, yes, you may have to do some things and prove some things that they don't have to do or prove. Don't lament this as if it's a negative thing, because not for nothing, all of you listening to this, if you handle your business properly, you will put yourself in a position to where in the future, your kids will have an in that they didn't have to work for because mommy and daddy set them up with that in. Mommy and daddy is you, by the way. So if you didn't have any ins because your parents didn't set you up, then there should be no excuse for your kids not being set up by you, because you're aware of it now. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, do black people work, quote unquote, twice as hard or 10 times as hard? And the answer is no, and I'm explaining why. Number 3, let's also remember that business in the professional world is not a meritocracy. I have to remind you of this over and over and over again. The business and professional world is not a meritocratic environment. It's not a meritocratic environment. It is not based on merit. The only place in the world that you're going to get anything that is close to based on merit is the professional sports world or just the sports world, period. Why? Because sports are judged. Outcomes are judged by a scoreboard, which is not human and it is completely objective and it has no feelings and no emotions and no personal preferences. Anything that involves feelings, emotions, or personal preferences, i.e. human beings, will never be completely objective. Therefore, it will never be completely meritocratic. It is impossible to have a meritocratic process with humans involved because humans have feelings, opinions, good days, bad days, and their political decisions and considerations. As soon as you start throwing humans into anything, it automatically becomes subjective. There's a saying that as soon as you put 3 people in a room, you get politics. That's why anything that is based on human decision can never be merit-based. It's impossible. So when Donald Trump announced when he won the election that we're going to have a merit-based society, he was speaking, as he often does, directionally, not literally. It's impossible to have a merit-based society that is run by people. You can't do it. If you're going to have a merit-based society, everything has to be based on a computer and a formula. Because computers and formulas don't have feelings and opinions. Humans have feelings and opinions. You can't have merit with feelings and opinions mixed in. It's impossible. You got to pick one. And most human beings do not have the ability to put their feelings and opinions aside and look at things completely objectively. It's one of the reasons why I have a space in the marketplace, because I have that ability. Most people can't come close to my ability to do it. And even me, with all of my objective powers, I cannot never be completely objective. I try to be as objective as possible, but I'm trying to do it. Most human beings don't even try to be objective. That's why it's impossible for them to do it. Even if they tried, they would fail because most people can't put their feelings aside to speak about what is logically true. And this is the reason why nothing in the professional world is ever meritocratic. So any of you who thought we were in a merit-based society, no, we're not, regardless of what Donald Trump says or whoever else, anybody else saying it. It is damn sure not based on how hard you work and it's not based on how good you are. This is a false argument, because it presupposes that how hard you work is the key to whether or not you are successful. It is not. This is what they told you in elementary school or preschool. All right, please delete this belief out of your brain. All right, this is a false idea that working hard is the thing that is the reason why you should be successful. No, 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 it is not. Hard work, ladies and gentlemen, is an element of success. Do not misconstrue it. Working hard does matter. Okay, you should work hard. My brand is called Work on Your Game. All right, work hard. Where you do the hard work, who you do it for, the results you produce, and how much the people who make decisions value those efforts, and more specifically, the outcomes of your efforts, that matters more than the effort itself. Should I say that sentence again? Make sure you got it. Let me say it again. If you're working hard, here's what matters. Where are you doing your hard work? Who you're doing that hard work for, i.e. who benefits from it? The results you produce from your hard work, and how much the people who make the decisions, i.e. the check writers, how much they value the results of your hard work. Those matter more than just the fact that you are working hard. You understand? So you got to work hard strategically. I told you that in life, episode 2341, business is not a meritocracy, but let me tell you what it is. It's 3 things. Number 1 is a strategocracy. I made up that word. That means people with the best strategy. It's a politocracy. I made up that word. Those are the people with the best relationships, i.e. politics. And it's a systemocracy. I made that word up too. People with the best systems. Strategies, politics, and systems. This is how you win in the professional world. That is highly subjective and is all based on how people feel. Everything in the professional world is based on people's feelings, even though they may tell you it's based on something else. It comes down to how people feel. People feel good about you, you get business. People feel bad about you, you get nothing. That's how it works. All right, that's the political side of things. But what about the strategy and the systems, right? Well, see, if you work your strategies and systems the right way, you're going to make the right people feel good and they're going to choose you. That's how you make money. Anybody who has any experience in business, please co-sign everything that I'm saying here. I know what I'm talking about. Well, let's recap today's class. And again, this is just part 1. Now, tomorrow I'm going to give you the rest, because I'm not done. Do black people work twice as hard? This is part 1 of this series that we're going to do here. And the general answer to this question is no. Black people are not working twice as hard or 10 times as hard, nor do you need to in order to be successful. People love to say this is point number 1. And most of you motherfuckers are not working even 1 time as hard, let alone 10 times as hard as anybody. Again, China has a 996, a 72-hour work week. When's the last time you put in 72 hours of work on purpose and you would do it again? Would you do it again? If you can't answer those questions, then please miss me with the 10 times harder bullshit. Number two, what is true is that you do sometimes need to be significantly better or more accomplished depending on what space you're stepping into, who you're competing against. Those things do mean you need to produce results. Remember, we're in a results-based business, not an effort-based business. Number three, also remember that business and the professional world are not meritocracies. Anybody who told you that they were, they lied to you. Many people talk as if that's what it is. Well, I'm this much better than this person, or I'm more quote unquote qualified. Remember, people kept throwing out this word qualified around Kamala Harris's campaign. You being qualified is completely irrelevant. Nobody cares how qualified you are. How good are you? How good are your results, rather? Excuse me. Not how good are you? How good are your results? What outcomes have you produced that you can prove objectively, prove that you actually bring value to the table? You can't answer that question. Nobody cares how qualified you are. Your qualification is highly subjective. Anything that is subjective can matter or not matter depending on who's making the call. All of you need to burn that onto your brains. All that said, tomorrow we're going to get into part 2 of this. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. You want to learn how to develop some real game, a real system, real strategies, and how to play the politic game the right way so that your effort and your outcomes actually do matter. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Tomorrow, part 2. Work on your game. Dre, all